Mets fans, it's another day, another absolutely late night video as it first drops here Eastern. It's going to be dropping north of midnight by the time that I'm coming out with this video, January 17th, 2025, and I simply do not care because we got to drop this. I am absolutely amped up as a Mets fan, and I genuinely don't think I've been this excited to talk about the Mets, let alone knowing what is going to come for this club in a calendar year since they landed Juan Soto 765 across 15. If you're wondering, Wardy, why are you so excited? It's not just because they landed Bichette. It's knowing what is now the trickle-down effect after landing Bichette. What is the domino after this? And the domino effect is that the New York Mets are all in. You don't make a move like Bichette without going all in for the 2026 season. So the likelihood of the New York Mets making big splashes is not only a certainty, but they're nearing. We're going to break down the latest information that we know publicly, what I know through everything that I've been hearing throughout the industry over the past 24 to 48 hours. And in these discussions, we're also going to break down more on the latest news regarding Mets target Cody Bellinger. The Mets love Belly. I love Belly. You may love Belly. Is he going to be a New York Met come 2026? We're going to break down the latest on his front. We're also going to get into a bit on Freddie Peralta, separate from our video that we just did this past day. This is newer information that has come out since then, earlier today, as a matter of fact. And we're going to break down more options regarding the New York Mets, because when I tell you that a big splash is nearing, why does it have to be just one? Why can't it be multiple? We're going to break it all down, everybody. Hit that like and subscribe on your way in. Let me know your thoughts, reactions, and most certainly analysis in the comments down below regarding everything that we're going to get into in this one. And shout out to our amazing sponsors that make every single show here happen, that being that SeatGeek that has you covered for all of your ticketing needs. You utilize our promo code WARDY10, that is WARDY10, for 10% off your next ticket purchase, as well as, everybody, check out Sleeper. Both these links are down below in the description for all things sports fantasy, and utilize our promo code HMA because you're going to get a 100% match up to $100 on your first deposit. If you guys want to get involved for NFL playoffs, maybe you're involved in the NBA scene, NHL scene, anything in the sporting space when it comes to fantasy, check out our awesome friend Sleeper. Promo code HMA, link down below in the description. All right, guys and gals, let's get right into this one. And like I said, I am amped up. Seriously, it's almost midnight at the time you're recording this. I do not care. I'm feeling so good right now, and I can't remember the last time I genuinely said that as a Mets fan. And before you go out your way to say, Wardy, why are you acting all giddy? You got Bichette when he wasn't even a team need from a defensive standpoint. The Mets are claiming to be building a better defensive club, yet Bichette's your starting third baseman. Jorge Polanco's your starting first baseman. What do they have in common? They are not known for playing those positions. And while I understand that counter, and while I understand the skepticism with the offseason, knowing the Mets still have a lot more moves to be had here, last time I checked, opening day doesn't start tomorrow. And last time I checked, every single player the Mets still want in the trade market is out there. Last time I checked, some of the most elite talents that make perfect sense for the Mets are still right in front of them in the free agent market. So once the dust settles, we'll talk about exactly how good or bad of an offseason the Mets had. But there is no denying that, again, you do not sign a man like what you see beside me here, and Mr. Bichette on a what? 3-year, 126 contract with opt-outs after each of the first two seasons, unless you're clearly going all in, because the Mets were adamant on bringing in a star. And they're adamant on making sure that Bichette is not the only star that they bring in this offseason. Why? Because you don't just allow guys like Pete Alonso and Brandon Nimmo to walk away from this Mets offense without at least having some level of an idea as to how you're going to help supplement the loss for the home runs, the loss for the RBIs, and at times the clutch hitting, even though I will say Bichette does laps around both Alonso and Nimmo on the regular when it comes to being a clutch hitter. You get a guy with north of a 400 average with runners in scoring position this past season, a career clutch hitter, one of the most clutch hitters we've seen in the American League. I can't complain there. I really can't. I'm absolutely ecstatic that this man is in Flushing, Queens for the New York Mets. And I just realized I'm a schmuck and didn't get the New York Post paper that should be on my wall behind me of the Bichette news today. So I'm going to try to get that last minute. If I can't, it's no worries. If anyone has an extra one, let me know, and maybe you could hook me up off online, something along those lines. But all right, love Bichette, love this move for the New York Mets. I've been a fan of Bichette since the literal start, and this is one thing that I did want to share with you guys. Let me pull this up real quick before we deep dive these topics in particular. Is to stay on the topic of Bo, let me just highlight this one quick thing for each and every one of you. As you guys and gals can see here, Bichette only has one home run against the New York Mets, and at Citi Field, and that came that we saw on July 24th of 2021. And there's something very, pardon me for the volume there, there's something very notable about this home run. And what's most notable is that I was in attendance. I was actually at this game. This is the only time I've seen the Toronto Blue Jays in person. They absolutely curb stomped the Mets in this ball game. The 2021 offense of the Blue Jays to this day, in my opinion, is the most impressive lineup I've ever seen since covering baseball 5+ years ago now. And that's Drew Smith with the lawn hair throwing a meatball inside. Of course, Bo's going to eat that up for breakfast. When that bomb happened, I literally looked at the person that I was at the game with and I said, I love Bo-Bichette. Like, that sucks, but, like, he's such a fun, dynamic player. Between him, Vladdy, Marcus Semien, who he's very happy to be teammates with again, obviously. You look at the laundry list, Lourdes Gurriel Jr., Teoscar Hernandez, Biggio when he was good. I mean, you're not even looking at Alejandro Kirk as much as you were Danny Jansen at the time. The lineup 1 through 9 was absolutely tremendous, and that was also the first year of George Springer as well, and they still did absolutely nothing that year, the Blue Jays. We know that too well as Mets fans. But all right, that was the only quick little side thing I want to show regarding Bo-Bichette and not regarding New York Mets news. So let's get into the New York Mets news today, everybody, because as you guys and gals can see here, according to Bill Madden, who actually is a follower of mine on X, so I appreciate that, Bill. Thank you so much. I'm not going to complain there. We see here the Yankees are prepared to move on from Cody Bellinger. Now, mind you, we're not long removed from there being previous reports that, basically the Yankees are comfortable where they're at with their offer of Cody Bellinger, and that basically they're leaving it at that, and they have reached a stalemate, and that they're going to continue to operate their offseason regardless of what happens with Bellinger. And the writing is on the wall, but we know how this works. We know how media posturing works. We know how it works when you have an agent, cough, cough, Scott Boras, relaying information to specific people in the media or people to then other people. And it's, again, that trickle down, if not domino effect. And then you come to find out these leaks come to fruition, right? Leaks happen all the time, the same way that the Mets had their contract offers leaked regarding the Kyle Tucker sweepstakes that I'd imagine wasn't on their end, but of course I could be wrong there. But the reason why I note this, everybody, is because when we look at Cody Bellinger, when we look at exactly how does he make sense for the New York Mets, we have seen the trend this offseason regarding the vast majority of moves that the Mets have made have been regarding players that you really didn't hear too much about beforehand. So I understand the skepticism to a degree in the pursuit of Cody Bellinger, as the Mets are still very much in his market, just because it's been so constantly reaffirmed throughout the media that the trend is that you shouldn't expect Cody Bellinger to become a New York Met then. And maybe in the end, Cody will in fact go back to the New York Yankees, but we'll have to see to believe it. Because right now, the stalemate is as true as it sounds, where they're still at 5 years, 155 to 160 million, and the Mets are still in his market per Pat Regazzo's reporting yesterday. It is absolutely telling that it's going to come down to who is the top dog when looking at dollars for Cody Bellinger. And if Cody Bellinger genuinely does not have the market that he's longing for as a Scott Boras client, which of course is going to be the 7 years there, what's going to happen? He's going to take a short-term high AV contract. What's a New York Mets team that could actually do a really good job on helping in that regard, that would be more than willing, I'm sure, to throw out another type of short-term high AV contract? Yeah, of course. It's the New York Mets. Again, this is right up the Mets' alley, and I've been saying this for days on end, and I'll say it again. It makes too much sense to throw Cody Bellinger a Bo-Bichette contract. But listen in close, folks. What if I told you the Mets may have already done that? All I'm saying is, don't be surprised if eventually, when the dust is settled regarding the Cody Bellinger sweepstakes, whether he lands with the New York Mets or lands elsewhere, do not be surprised when you inevitably hear through reporting that the Mets did in fact approach Cody Bellinger with exactly the type of similar contract as Bo-Bichette, as Alex Bregman with the Red Sox a year ago, $40 million plus a year for a guy that you may say on paper isn't deserving of it, but at the same time, Bellinger's defensive value is so pronounced that between that and the offense, that's going to balance out, and that's absolutely going to be worthwhile. We talk about the Mets going all in this offseason. That means that they're not holding anything back when it comes to payroll. They're going to be unbelievably opportunistic. They're not going to act like a drunken sailor. They're not just going to land a guy for the sake of landing a guy, but you could rightfully argue that Cody Bellinger makes more sense now than he ever has before this offseason, especially after bringing in Bo-Bichette, because you're still missing a clear quality bat to help supplement the loss of the power of guys like Alonso and Nimmo, and you brought in Bichette, who's going to help greatly, but Bellinger is that final infinity stone for the New York Mets this offseason, in my opinion. If it's not him, then you're going to go after a guy, in my opinion, like Jarren Duran, who we broke down more extensively in yesterday's video. Make sure to check that out in case you guys haven't already. But the reason why I mentioned the fact that the New York Mets may already have approached Bellinger in this kind of fashion is because there's a lot of whispers going around. And I can't tell you it's 100% certainty or in great confidence, but you know how the saying goes with the offseason with me. When I hear things I'm able to share, I most certainly will do that. And there has definitely been a lot of smoke on the Cody Bellinger front. I kid you not. As soon as Post-Bichette signed, the first thing that was blowing up my phone was that, oh my God, the Mets are very much still in on Cody Bellinger. And this was prior to Pat's reporting yesterday. And here's the thing. I love Pat to death, but I also know that Pat and I both have a mutual connection when it comes to being relayed information. Not sure Pat knows this, but I know this. So I'm just saying that it will not at all be surprising, again, if you find out publicly, sooner rather than later, that the Mets are approaching Bellinger in this fashion, because it makes literally too much sense. When you look at Cody Bellinger as a player profile, when you look at the fact that he does not have a qualifying offer attached, contrary to my initial belief, because I'm a schmuck and got myself tongue-tied a couple days ago on my segment with the Post, just too excited about Bichette. That's probably why I was all over the place there. But every single free agent that's been made available for the most part has had the qualifying offer attached, including Framber Valdez, which is why, if I'm being honest, I don't expect the Mets to land Framber Valdez. I think Framber Valdez is going to go elsewhere, because I do firmly believe the Mets are going to trade for a starter in this market, and that's going to take up a good chunk of this discussion, this one too, so be on the lookout for that, everybody. But Bellinger makes so much sense for this club. I'm going to say this daily until it either happens or it doesn't. And if Belly doesn't land with the New York Mets, okay, fine. We're not going to be able to have everything that we want. I understand. But between Bellinger's elite defense from left to center to right to first base, between that, his elite leadership qualities, he's been beloved in every single clubhouse he's been a part of, from LA to Chicago to New York. What do those three cities have in common? They're all big market. And that's another thing that Cody Bellinger has handsomely done a fantastic job on handling without a problem. This is a player that is more of, in my opinion, a team fit than any other player available from the position player front that the Mets could land this offseason. If the Mets left around and traded for a quality outfielder, great. But regardless on how great that ceiling is for that outfielder, Cody Bellinger is still a better immediate team fit. I said it throughout the entire process regarding Kyle Tucker. Not a slight on Tucker. I would have loved Kyle Tucker. Obviously, that did not happen. Wasn't for a lack of effort on the Mets end by throwing him $60 million a year across multiple years and giving him $20 million more than the Dodgers' initial offer in the first 2 years of his contract before he could opt out. But he's a schmuck and want LA, because why not ring chase when everyone in baseball can be Kevin Durant now? It's that easy. But enough of the salt. Let's talk about what is sweet, and that is the idea of Cody Bellinger being in this Mets lap, and see him there. Not a problem. Lefty. See ya against his former club in the Cubs. That's why you don't throw a slider down the pipe, baby. Absolute nuke to short porch. And for those that are concerned about Belly's numbers between dominating at the home versus away, with all due respect, shut up. And here's why, okay? We see splits drastically happen all the time when it comes to players. And last time I checked, common sense tells you that if a player is batting in a bandbox for 80 games a season, they're likely going to adjust to that more than any other stadium that they're playing in, because they don't play in any other stadium the same sample size in a season. And especially when you're a lefty power hitter that pulls the right side and you have a short porch that's perfectly positioned to benefit you, you're going to do your best to take advantage of that. Now, I understand Cody Bellinger had an OPS difference of like 200 plus on the points from home to road this past year. You want to know why? Quite literally, and part of my French kiddos don't give a rat's ass about it? It's because if we're going to have that mentality, then keep that same mentality regarding Francisco Lindor, who was absolutely god-awful on the road this past season. Keep that same mentality regarding every single player in the league that has some drastic home and road splits. It happens. Why? Because a lot of players usually have the tendency, believe it or not, I know this is hard to comprehend for some of you, but believe it or not, there are a lot of players that prefer to play at home. They prefer to play with their home fans. They have a greater comfortability at home. Francisco Lindor, here's my girl, looks at his daughters and his son and his wifey in their box every single game before he takes his at-bats and waves to them. He's feeling electric at Citi Field when you have 40+ thousand roaring, singing your song. But on the road, Francisco Lindor was quite literally a shell of himself. He was 20 to 30% below league average as a batter on the road this past season. He had an OPS just over 600 or so. Absolutely dreadful. Lindor's lack of offensive production on the road absolutely hurt the Mets, which is in hand why they were 13 games below 500 or so on the road this past year. But having said that, we know that Lindor is going to be a bounce back candidate, and we know that hopefully, God willing, with a different looking team next season, that we can get Lindor more staying afloat. That's why, thankfully, even though Cody Bellinger Doesn't have the greatest road and home splits. You know what he does have? Not only all the amazing qualities I just relayed each and every one of you, from the offense to especially the defense, which, in case you guys have been living under a rock, this is why David Stearns loves the idea of a guy like Cody Bellinger beyond his ability to dominate the New York market like he did for the Yankees this past year. It's his elite eye at the plate that you guys see in the 84th and 91st percentile whiff and K percentage, but it's also the outs above average. Again, this man is so elite defensively, it's not even funny. I mean, when you have 93rd out of 100 and 100's best in baseball and outs above average, arm value 91st, 83rd in arm strength, and 72nd in sprint speed, you're doing something right. But Cody Bellinger brings so many qualities to the table as is. But by adding him and putting him in this lineup, the Mets become a greater lineup with eliminating strikeouts, okay? Brandon Nimmo, Pete Alonso, what did these players have in common this past season? Both of which had a strikeout percentage of over 20%. Okay, when we look at Post-Bichette, when we look at Jorge Polanco, what do these guys have in common? Oh yeah, they had strikeout rates well below 20%. When we look at Cody Bellinger, he's the best of the bunch, as a matter of fact. Belly's strikeout percentage this past year was right around 13 or so percent. So not only would the Mets be doing a tremendous job by bringing in another clutch hitter, a guy who's handled the big market, a former World Series champion who knows what it takes to win, a great clubhouse leader and character who I think would bode so well in this clubhouse from how the Mets are building it, but more than anything else, this is a guy who has an elite eye at the plate. And the idea of having Bellinger, Soto, Lindor, Bichette, Polanco, and Semien, who we know, in case you guys are, and I actually apologize, I meant to reference Semien regarding the strikeout numbers, not so much Polanco. Semien has a fantastic approach at the plate still, and still has a strikeout rate well below 20%. So the point I'm trying to make is, not only would the Mets lineup be so much more balanced in 2026 and 2025 from righties to lefties, but you would be adding so many guys that have the commonality of leadership, the commonality of clutch when looking at runners in scoring position, a commonality with some of them, not all of them, with handling the New York market, or at least wanting to be a part of it the way that Marcus Semien is ecstatic to be in New York. He's always wanted to be here. He said, these are things that you want in player profiles. It goes so much more beyond just, oh, what they did offensively. Oh, or that they're just a good defender. There are all these little attributes built up, and I think in order for the New York Mets to go all in this win-now stage for next season, they need guys that check off various boxes. Not just one, not just two. They need a guy that's going to really check off more of what they're looking for than less. And Cody Bellinger, by all accounts, checks off every single one of those boxes. Literally, his floor as a bat is league average. You don't care about that because of how deep this Mets lineup would be. If you really saw a Mets lineup heading into next season, and ignore the order here, but let's just, again, talk about it for a second. Let's say you're going Lindor, Soto, Bichette, Bellinger. Then we're going to go, let's say, Polanco, Semien, Alvarez, Benj. Blanking on one other guy there. I'm completely blanking right now. You guys can fill that for me, whoever that would be. So again, doesn't need to be exactly accurate with the lineup. But when I look at that lineup just on paper, I love how that sounds. I really, really like how that sounds. I love the depth of it. I love the diverse aspect of it from righties to lefties. I love the elite approach that numerous batters in this Mets lineup have. And as much as I love Nimmo and Alonso and will always care for them for the remainder of their career, both things can be true. You can love players, but also knowing that it's okay to move on from them. And if the Mets continue to build this roster the way that they're anticipating, if they bring in a Bellinger or say trade for a Jarren Duran, I'll play devil's advocate and say that, okay, it could be okay if they don't land Bellinger, because it could be okay. I think Jarren Duran would be a really, really nice consolation prize if they didn't land Cody Bellinger. And there are some other guys out there that could be attractive as well. And we're also not forgetting that the Mets have, actually, let me correct myself. I was going to say the Mets were initially in the market for a righty bat. They might be a little less inclined for a righty bat now after bringing in Bichette. You definitely want to bring in a lefty like Bellinger. I think he makes a lot of sense. The only other thing I would say on the offensive end is, outside of potentially going after Bellinger, if the Mets say don't land Bellinger, and let's say hypothetically they land truly just a guy who plays the outfield, do not be surprised if they still land then another bat to help platoon Polanco at first base to DH, because Mark Vientos, I'm sorry. I will be jaw-dropped if he is at all a guy getting fairly consistent first base reps for the Mets to begin the season when you already have Bichette, who's been known as a defensive liability his entire career, to now handle a new position for the first time. You know, it just doesn't feel like it's going to add up to have Bo throwing big tosses to first for Mark Vientos to scoop up. Again, I'll have to see to believe it. But I definitely want to hear from you guys in the comments down below regarding Cody Bellinger in particular. How confident are you that the New York Mets are going to be able to get something like this done? Or do you think that because of the fact that there's been so much smoke for so long around Bellinger and the Mets, that naturally it's not going to happen? Because we've kind of been going with this reverse psychology mentality that in order for the Mets to get what they want in this offseason, we have to kind of expect the unexpected. No one had Ori Polanco. No one had Bichette, even though I will give credit. I know Evan Roberts was saying right before Bichette happened that earlier that same day, if I'm not mistaken, in one of his shows, I do believe he was saying how, like, basically the Mets are going to go after Bo, and he deserves credit for that, because same way that I appreciate when people say, Wardy, you were right with this, because I'm usually wrong with a lot, so it always feels good every once in a while. But again, the theme outside of Devin Williams this offseason is that every player the Mets have landed has surprised fans given the lack of reporting. Now, Luke Weaver was a guy I always thought was going to land with the Mets for similar reasons as Devin Williams. Quality reliever, makes sense for the back end, has plenty of relationships in the Mets organization as is, and is someone who can handle the New York market. The Mets want those kind of pitchers that aren't going to shy away from the big market, from the bright lights and everything else in between. But to conclude my thoughts on Cody Bellinger here, the New York Mets do not land him, and if they do not see him go to the New York Yankees, this is where you do have to bear in mind the potential that you're going to see a team like the Philadelphia Phillies maybe try to swoop in and actually do something. My apologies, everybody. I'm just making sure that this wasn't news on my phone. There's one team in particular that has now found themselves linked as of today to Cody Bellinger. I want to see if I have the graphic for it. If I don't, it's perfectly fine. I don't at the moment. However, what I was going to say, yeah, the Philadelphia Phillies are lurking at Bellinger now. And Bellinger does make a lot of sense for the Phillies. He really does, because he can play those various positions for you. Do not be shocked if the Phillies, after getting absolutely worked by Bichette and the Mets in those sweepstakes, now come uber aggressive in their pursuit of Bellinger. And think about it. If the Phillies were willing to offer 7 years, $200 million to Bichette, who's not to say that they may not pivot and give Bellinger a similarly structured contract? And that might be what Belly ends up with in the end. So the more I think about it, the more I say it, the more that I'm cautiously, optimistic on the Bellinger front, just in the sense of, will a short-term high AAV contract be enough for Bellinger? Or would he prefer those years if the Phillies are willing to go there? Because if the years is what Bellinger's most stubborn on this offseason, he will not be a New York Met. However, if he is most focused on getting maximization of dollars per season, then that's where I say, why is he not a Met already? So a lot of questions still lie when it comes to Cody Bellinger, and we have seen the fact that when there's a lack of reporting regarding a team and a player, that can be a good thing, especially in the case of the lack of reporting regarding the buildup of the Dodgers with Tucker. So all I'm saying is the Phillies have more work that they need to do this offseason. They need a starter after letting Ranger Suarez walk. Would not surprise me if they honestly landed a guy like Framber Valdez and the Mets go ahead and land a quality starter at minimum in the trade market. And that is now what I would like to transition to, everybody, because when we talk more about big splashes are coming soon for the New York Mets, I'm going to put myself on record right now. It is January 17th, 2026. I'm going to put myself on record, and if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. It would just be the continued trend of the offseason. So there's no harm, no foul from my end here. I'm just saying, and you can take this with a grain of salt, or you can take this with everything. Completely up to you. If the New York Mets have not traded for a quality starter a week from now, I will be surprised. For all the things I've said that I shouldn't be surprised by anything this offseason, that would have me surprised. And there is reason as to why I say that. And there are certain things that I cannot really relate too much to you now. But again, just read between the lines kind of situation here. Just don't think too hard about it for a second. If I'm saying that I would really be surprised if the Mets don't trade for a quality starter by a week from now or so, let's be a little conservative, 7 to 10 days, okay? So if it's the 17th from now, let's give it to, at absolute latest, the 27th. If the Mets have not traded for a quality starter, I'll be very surprised, and I'll just leave it at that. Now, regarding starters, there's various guys the Mets could go after, but here's the thing. There was reporting that came out from John Heyman, who initially reiterated the Mets and Yankees connection to Freddie Peralta. But now Heyman stated this earlier today. Brewers continue to field offers on ace pitcher Freddie Peralta, a free agent after 2026. Yanks, Mets, Giants, Braves, Dodgers. Among many, many interested teams, Peralta's $8 million salary means anyone can afford, including Brewers, but extension tougher for smaller market. So that's what we got there, everybody. And I know what you're thinking. F the Dodgers. Please don't swoop in. Please leave us alone. I am begging you. Please, 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 please do not make this happen. I'm not going to expand too much in regards to Peralta. I'm just going to be very brief with this one because we broke him down more extensively yesterday. I like Freddie Peralta a lot, genuinely. I really, really do. And I will not be complaining if he lands with the New York Mets in the end. However, he is not the starter I'm anticipating that the Mets are going to trade and actually land in the end. And that has nothing to do with what I have been relayed. This is just my personal opinion. That is all this is. I think Peralta makes so much sense for the New York Mets that this is one of those scenarios that because he does, it isn't going to happen, genuinely. I think that Freddie Peralta, if he's going to be traded this offseason, may very well be traded to, again, one of those other teams. I think the Dodgers may honestly be the top dog for his services because they have such an attractive farm and might be willing to bite the bullet and trade a starter for starter type deal here, where the Dodgers get a young, controllable starter in return, but that starter isn't at the same level as Freddie Peralta. And you know what is one starter that just bounced in my mind right away as a fit for the Milwaukee Brewers if they did say a trade with the LA Dodgers? You know, there's one in particular that really, really sticks out, but I also understand that there there is more than likely a reluctance on their part to want to deal him. And that's Emmett Sheehan, right? Like, the Dodgers would be crazy. They wouldn't trade Emmett Sheehan and kind of a flip-flop for Freddie Peralta, right? They wouldn't do such a thing. Or would they? Would they consider doing such a thing because they know that Peralta is far more of the guaranteed thing? Sheehan looked really good really good when he's out there, obviously. But when we look at his numbers in particular, just from this past season, you know, with 2.8 ERA and 73 innings, mind you, not bad numbers at all across 15 starts, but only had 73 innings. Is he going to be a lock to give them a lot of quality, a lot of length next season? Or is he a guy that's going to be utilized in a similar fashion where you're going to kind of get him in just a smaller sample size? If the latter holds true, Freddie Peralta is north of 200 innings each season is something that the Dodgers would absolutely love the idea of landing. So all I'm saying is for a Brewers team that's in the market for young, controllable pitching, if they want established pitching, if the Dodgers at all have an appetite to trade Sheehan in essentially a one-for-one swap here, which you can rightfully argue wouldn't make enough sense from the Dodgers' point of view, and I'm not saying that it would. I'm just saying this hypothetical. Okay, if that's the case, fine. Because you know what I have to say? If the Mets don't land Freddie Peralta, and if I'm being honest with you, a part of me wants Freddie Peralta to go elsewhere. And the reason why I say that is because if Freddie Peralta goes elsewhere, this is of greater possibility. And I'm not saying that Tarik Skubal is a lock, so please do not think that that is the case here. All I'm saying, though, is that the Mets are now, if you thought the Mets were in a good position to trade for Tarik Skubal before, they are in a greater position to trade for him than even a week ago. You want to know why? Brett Beatty's now expendable, and that's massive. The Detroit Tigers have tried to trade for Brett Beatty multiple times over the past calendar year. That is massive when you look at the idea of trading for Tarik Skubal. And I know if you're the New York Mets, maybe you don't love the idea of giving up massive assets for a rental, but I'm sorry. Tarik Skubal is a guy with north of a 7 WAR. You do that, okay? This man alone can equate to north of 7 wins himself for the New York Mets. Think about that. Think about it in the hypothetical of the Mets, maybe you say, with all the moves that they make, look like that they could be a 90-win team. Let's say they have a good remainder of their offseason. Okay, looking like a 90-win team. Tarik Skubal can make them north of a 97-win team. Just himself alone. It's not just the fact that he's a back-to-back Cy Young Award winner. It's what you see beside me. It's the fact that he's literally arguably the best pitcher in almost every single statistic that we're looking at. This is out of 100. When you have a southpaw that sits 97 to 102 consistently on the fastball, when you have a guy who had 100 plus strikeouts with his changeup, when you have a guy who literally is the embodiment of an ace in today's game that the Mets have severely lacked with the exception of the young blossoming Nolan McLean, this is what you do, okay? And here's the thing. If you don't do it, the Dodgers are going to do it. That's what you need to bear in mind here. The Dodgers absolutely are frothing at the mouth for Tarik Skubal. And the Dodgers and the Tigers have made a trade together regarding a starter just 2 seasons ago, and Jack Flaherty going from Detroit to LA. They have a rapport and relationship. If the Dodgers are looking for starting pitching, we know they are, why wouldn't they do their best efforts to land Tarik Skubal? That's why we need to have more of this Tarik Skubal discussion. Because now the Mets are in a position where they can trade multiple infielders. They can trade multiple top prospects. They can unload the dump truck of assets to make Tarik Skubal happen. They have so much that they can offer to the Tigers right now of players that aren't of team need for the Mets. That is what's most important to highlight here. Mark Vientos is not a team need, and this is not a personal slight against Mark, but he's not. The Mets are more than likely going to probably add someone that can bring more stability there at first base, separate from Polanco, barring changes. Brett Beatty, and I love Brett. This is nothing personal, but I would be the first to help Brett get his flight set right to Detroit. When you look at Ronnie Mauricio, Luis Angel Acuna, when you look at Jet Williams, when you look at one of Christian Scott, Brandon Sproat, Jonathan, and I understand the reluctance with Tom, but again, Jonathan, for as much as I love him, is never going to be as good as Tarik Skubal in his career, more than likely. And that's not a slight on him. It's a really hard thing to do when you can try to become literally the best pitcher of baseball the way that Skubal has each of the past couple seasons. The Mets have so much that they can offer without losing sleep over it, okay? And I understand the Dodgers are in that category as well. However, the Mets have more MLB-ready talent that can help the Detroit Tigers now. I think that's notable, especially after the Tigers, after trying to land Alex Bregman an offseason ago, didn't even put in as much of a valiant effort this offseason. The writing is on the wall that they could certainly use a quality third baseman, and Brett Beatty is that. So if Brett Beatty is that man that is the difference maker, no Mets fan is going to complain about what you're getting in return. Tarik Skubal is what takes the Mets to another level. Tarik Skubal is so significant of a move for this rotation that not only would it be exactly what we have been wanting for his Mets fans, but he would be bringing so much more dominance to the Mets. He would be bringing a face to the Mets that really makes the Mets look like you don't want to F with them. Because think about it. If you had a rotation, Tarik Skubal, Nolan McLean, you could go in so many different orders after Nolan McLean, if I'm being completely honest with you. But let's go Kodai Senga for now. Clay Holmes, Sean Manaea, David Peterson, Christian Scott, Jonathan, Brandon Sproat. You're likely going to trade at least one of those in the deal for Skubal. So let's exclude one of them. The depth is through the roof. And the Mets are in the market to potentially bring back Griffin Canning, which is never a bad idea because he can be utilized in various ways. Okay? Tarik Skubal would make this a slam dunk of a win of an offseason. Skubal is so valuable that, if I'm being completely honest with you, I'd rather have Tarik Skubal and the impact that he has on the New York Mets over potentially, and I know this might be an unbelievably hot take, than Pete Alonso, and here's why. Skubal's undoubtedly more of a team need. And while Alonso does play every day in ways that Skubal doesn't, think about how much more impressive it is that Tarik Skubal, who pitched in 31 games this past season, had north of a 7 Fangraphs wins above replacement. That's almost, I mean, not almost, but it's a little less than double Pete Alonso's F4 this past year, okay? From a player value standpoint, you can't do a better job than landing Tarik Skubal this offseason if you're the New York Mets. This would be the creme de la creme. This would be truly the best of the best. And I understand when we talk about a guy like Tarik Skubal, you have to give up a lot of assets. But this is what I'm saying. If you're the New York Mets, if you're in a win now stage, and when you have as deep of a farm as they have, you can do this without losing sleep over it. Why? Because the Mets farm is unbelievably deep. They have so many pitching prospects waiting in the wings, separate from the guys we talked about. Jonathan Santucci, Jack Weniger, RJ Gordon, Zach Thornton. There's at least one more. Will Watson. And I'm sure there's at least one other guy. Sorry, my seat is just... You guys see this? My seat just dropped on me. What is going on here? I know my seat's tired. It's been a long day. We're both tired. We're gonna hit the hay as soon as this recording's done here. But Tarik Skubal's that guy, guys. Just appreciate the highlights beside. There's a reason why the Tigers mascot is going like this. He's that guy. Could you imagine Citi Field with Tarik Skubal on the mound? I can't believe I'm saying this, but he's so effing good that he would make you genuinely forget about Jacob deGrom. I say forget in the sense of you wouldn't be, another season where we're without a quality ace. I miss Jake so much. No. We would be ecstatic because we would have a guy giving us 200 innings, probably 2.5 ERA, amazing K to walk ratio, striking out everyone and their mother, but as a lefty. I've never witnessed that too much as a Mets fan. A flame-throwing dominant lefty in the Mets rotation. You know, when I think of dominant lefties for the New York Mets, the most recent that pops in my mind genuinely is Nohan. Outside of him, not all that much. Skubal's the guy, and he's someone who I really haven't seen a true profile of since covering the Mets. So I really want to see it for that reason too. The velocity, the moxie, the dominance, the championship pedigree, even though he doesn't have a championship yet, but that type of mentality, this would just be through the roof, slam dunk of a move for the Mets. And I'm not saying it's a lock to happen. The Tigers could be schmucks and still not trade him. But all I'm saying is the Mets have all the assets to make it happen. And before we were a little hesitant saying, oh, maybe they don't. No, they do. They literally do. Post-Bichette just positioned the Mets in the most beautiful way imaginable to quite literally do anything that they want to trade for a starter, as long as they, A, have the appetite to do so, and B, the team that they're trading with also has the appetite to make it happen. But Mets fans, I want to know all your thoughts in the comments down below. What starter out there via trade is most attractive to you and why? And between Cody Bellinger and Jarren Duran, if you had to pick one, which one do you have a greater preference for? Let me know all your thoughts in the comments down below. Thank you guys again so much for watching. I greatly appreciate it. Have a fantastic rest of your night, day, evening, whenever you're watching this. And as always, no matter what, let's effing go Mets. Let's have ourselves an offseason. We're locking in. We're back in. We were never out, even though we were always out. Just when I thought I was out, they pull me back in. Let's effing go, boys. See you soon. Have a great one.